Hello, back again. Today we make a video. Still not secure what I'm going to talk about, but more or less the idea was to talk about the matter that for somebody like Christian here, hearing only Guarneri, Stradivari, and on the cellos Montagnana, and then this one here becomes from Min Gofrilla, let's say. Which is, oh, wow, they make a different model here. All the other cellos are Stradivarius and Montagnana. The question was, why do violin makers always make the same models? Why don't they, every violin maker makes his own model? And that's a very spicy question, because it's a little bit like from outside that Christian with his question here was a little bit tipping our toes here. Hey, show me what you can do, huh? And let's go over there. Now, actually, I wanted to start this video here in front of this wall. Marco is very nice from the backside when he's working, and he's actually judging. If I say something wrong, then he makes like this, you know, real Italian, you know? But this was actually because of all these molds we have. So we don't only have one violin and one cello or one viola. On the viola, certainly we have many measurements, but on the violins you have Testore, Lord Wilton, Stradivari, a very classic one, a late one. Actually another Testore, which is the same but a little bit shorter or longer, Stradivari Betz, Stradivari Cremonese, King George. And then over there we have all the Guarneris, because we are doing recently a lot of Guarneris. I show you over there, what does it mean, a different Guarneri, or one Stradivari and another one, and how much are these differences between one model and another one? I try you at least my experience, why I didn't make myself my personal model much earlier. Yeah? Let's go over there and we see what we're doing here. Christian, come here. So, here we have these violin reference books. That's another Christian who sold them to me. You can check out his homepage on amatibooks.com. That was a free advertising for my friend Christian, who is selling these books. A pretty hard business, because every book is actually printed in a very low number, because out there aren't so many people willing to pay thousands of euros or US dollars for these books. And if you look inside, you have here a book only with Stradivarius, okay? All the Stradivarius, yeah? From early years to all his life. And they're like, this Stradivari book, I think this is number 2, I think there exist now 8 of these ones. When I bought them, I didn't expect that paper can be so heavy. And so I really need to feel very well to take out one of these books, because it's pretty hard work. Most of these books have inside, probably the model which has been made the most is Stradivari. And before Stradivari there was Amati. So, and the shape of the violin itself had a certain evolution. In the beginning it was more, we call it amatisé, which means a little bit more round, more, let's say, for somebody who is outside the violin trade, Amati is a typical happy looking violin, how you just take violin and F holes, very funny, a little bit, let's say, Walt Disney style. And then with Stradivari, there appeared a violin maker who was thinking a little bit more about the whole thing, measuring and designing it very precise. And then when he was making it, it was also very precise to make it very precise, which up to that date, I don't want to now to put them all into the same category, but they were less precise, let's say. They didn't take it that serious. And then there was, next to Stradivari also, his raw Guarneri. Stories go from, I don't know, always drunk to I don't know what, and in jail and everything. Let's say half of it is true and was jail, and he made only in 10 years all his instruments. But still, even with Guarneri, you see that his style was changing over the years, just like with Stradivari. So when you see it from Stradivari in the beginning, it was like his master Amati, right? And then over the years, he elaborated his Stradivari style. And Guarneri started with something which was a little bit, I would say, a little bit brave. This open seas was always a little bit Guarneri style, but then it became more and more his personal style. And that's actually something which happens with all the makers. Now I have to put down this book, it's so heavy, you know. It really is a heavy book. We all are made in the same way. You and me, we're all the same. We are human, and human beings have this automatic process inside that they want to make things more efficient and better. We all want to do things better and better, and as soon as you made something the best, it's your new standard. Me, you, all of us. And that's, we call it then with human being evolution. And with the violin making, probably even back at those days when Stradivari was making his instruments still in the Baroque style, no Strat at that time was made how we have it to be played nowadays, by the way. There have been a lot of changes, that's another video. He probably had certain requirements and then had success because he did something, and so he was going a little bit more into that direction. And the same with Guarneri, and probably every maker is doing the same, yes? Once you come at that point that you elaborate from somebody else made model and you change it, you have already a certain experience, and we're talking about hundreds of instruments being made. Okay, and once you have that experience, automatically you probably have already gray hair like me. I look younger than I am, but I'm 57 now, close being, by the time you look at this one, I'm already 70, you know, it's just, wow, it's passing by so quick. And then you have automatically some ideas that you know certain things when you change them, what it will result in your sound. So when I had to make my osmium violin, I had to change because I wanted to make something outstanding, particular, new, not based on Stradivari or Guarneri, and so I started to design my own model, okay? And it's not the first time that I sit down and say, hey, let's design something new. And at the time, a violin maker, me or others, you sit down and you have to design and draw your own model, you immediately see yourself in big troubles, because you realize how much you are based actually on those great masters, great with a big G, okay? And our perception of beauty even is based on these models. And as soon as you start to change them, you look at it and then you try, and then everything you're changing and doing, the more you're actually adapting it somehow to that taste. So it's a very particular process which is going on. Then for that instrument which is decorated along the sides, I had to make it a little bit larger. I wanted it a tough sound, a little bit like a Guarneri, and on the other side the beauty of the corners of a Stradivari. And so it turned out to be a very particular shape. Right now I'm varnishing, so it's a little bit not the right moment to show you. Let's keep things a little bit more easy. We want to understand why violin makers don't make everybody's own. If you are in the capital of violin making, like me here in Cremona, with 100 at the time we are recording here, it's 186 violin makers have an official violin making workshop. The competition is high and you're trained because you're so much into it that as soon as somebody who even studied, let's say for example in Cremona, is moving away, let's say to north of Europe, or I don't know, let's say Australia or wherever, as soon as they do not come frequently back and compare their own work with other makers here in town, they elaborate a different style. And we from Cremona, when we look at it, it's always a little, wow, what did he do here, you know? Because they lose a little bit their reference and the competition with the next ones next to it. Even nowadays we are so exchanged, and we see on every social nice shapes and pictures and everything. So it's a very particular process which is going on. It's actually good on one side, and on the other side, the margin of this, how much is it? And I show you. I took here now a very nice model, is from Stradivari, the Hellier, which is a very large model and is very nice looking. I just saw it when I was choosing which models I wanted to show you. And we take this, let's call it the Hellier is the, let's say now, a very beautiful Stradivari. This is the back, and then we take a very good sounding and definitely great Guarneri. This is the ex-David Heifetz Guarneri. And now this is certainly the back from the Stradivari and the top from the Guarneri. But the shape itself should be completely the same, or let's say for a violin is violin, so it doesn't really make it. So we can flap it over and you see them like this, right? I doubt you can see the big difference, but as soon as I start to explain you where to look at, if you look here at this C, what a tiny turn here, and after all the length here of this C, and then you do the same thing with the Guarneri, okay? Compared like this, now this is the opposite here like this, so I should actually do it a little bit like that. I don't know if you can see it like this very well, because if it's just the aluminum like this, maybe you can see it better, or we can flip it over like this and we look at the images, and then you have the advantage that the purfling, the dark line, is a little bit more amplifying the shape itself. This is the Stradivari, and this is a larger C, and it's a little bit more open. Even so, the Heifetz isn't actually an exaggerated Guarneri. Yeah. Now you would say, there you can tell. If you see now the difference, you say, I can tell the difference. Great. Now you do another thing. We do them completely together, okay? And then I check out how much is actually the difference. And when we put them together, then what do we see? We see that the Stradivari, if I put them all on one side, okay, then we see that the Stradivari is larger, let's say 2 millimeters on the lower, or 3 millimeters on the lower side, 4 millimeters on the upper side, and in the C, they're the same size if I put them together. If I put the C's together, now you see the Guarneri, how it is more open, okay, and the Stradivari has more crunchy corners which pop out very nice, while the Guarneri has smaller ones, tiny nipples here, tuck tuck, and that's it, you know. But after all, if you put them from back to last together, it's, well, the corners, I don't believe that the corners really make so much of sound. So let's take even away the corners, and then we just have here some tiny areas, which is actually here a little bit, it's 1-2 millimeters maximum, okay? And if you think of 1-2 millimeters of this outline areas makes the difference, you're surprised that so little makes such a huge difference in sound. Just think of this, behind is the Stradivari, these little changes make the Stradivari, the Hellier, extremely beautiful and equilibrated sound, while the Guarneri, the high frets, is a very classic Guarneri with a typical rough, strong character. And you wouldn't expect that it's so little difference and such a huge difference in sound. From one Guarneri to another Guarneri, there are also differences. So let's say if we go from high frets to the Isae, there's actually again differences like this. The high frets is larger. The Isae is more narrow in the Cs. The shape of the C is pretty similar, but after all, there's more difference between Isae to high frets than from high frets to Hellier. That's pretty interesting if I look at it like this, yeah? And they look pretty similar, or at least you say, okay, this is Guarneri. And if you go to a very late Guarneri, from the high frets to the Ole Bull, yeah, this is here, yeah, it's a little bit less difference, so, but again, a little bit. And you can definitely hear the differences between a Ole Bull, a high frets, a Isae Guarneri, or a Lord Wilton, let's say. But they all have a kind of a certain character, while a Stradivari, and these now all the Stradivaris all the way through from the Betz to the Cremonese, and then so there's hundreds of them. They all have actually the common character that they're very beautiful. So now, if you just see these little changes, you can imagine how little margin a violin maker has now to make his own model. You cannot now make like a centimeter here and a centimeter there. That's impossible. Musicians would immediately complain that they would touch with the bow. They can't reach that string here, the E string, because of that, or they have difficulties to reach on the E string because the ribs would disturb, or stuff like this. So violin is very little and has little margin to play with. Yeah? From the taste of a different model, it's very difficult to elaborate your own style. Some models like the Store, for instance, from Milan, are very, very different and are very far off of what our taste is here with Stradivari, Guarneri, and the great masters. So usually people identify with this, and if they dream of something of this area in sound, it's very difficult for a violin maker to allow himself to make a new design and then be able, with that new design, to satisfy the request of the musicians, okay? So, after all, we can conclude this video that making your own model for a violin maker is actually a very challenging part, because you need somebody who is willing to spend on that violin maker to create his own model. The violin maker needs to have a certain experience in construction, only construction, for many, many, many years, in order that he can juggle with his experience and elaborate his own model, which matches and fits perfect to his personal sound imagination he wants to create. And those are already some ingredients which are already very, very important to do that. Yeah, I think it's we should leave it like this, but there would be actually, this is actually the title for a discussion down below here, because are you willing to spend your money in something you don't know how it will sound, or how do you proceed? What model are you looking for? Or you choose the model because you saw that one said that he is playing on a Guarneri Lord Wilton model or on a Stradivari Il Cremonese, Or how do you think should a violin maker now act? Should he design immediately from the first day his own shape, or should a violin maker first make some experience and then slowly, because of a evolution of his own making, is elaborating his own model? What do you think? Let me know. Leave your message down below here. See you soon. Ciao, ciao.